Welcome back to our channel.
We're the Two Roaming Souls. I'm Jake, and this is Emily. And this week's video,
We're talking about monthly expenses of what it's like to live in our camper van and travel full time. We have two different types of travel that we do. One being we're traveling full time, we're spending tons of money on gas, food, you name it, doing some cool things in the touristy cities. And then a second one is we usually pick up seasonal jobs and we're really not traveling nearly as much. And we tend to get jobs in restaurants and stuff, so our meals are pretty much handled for the most part.
yeah, so the variance between our most expensive months traveling in the van and our least expensive months is big enough that we thought we should sort of cover them separately. So depending on if you're just doing van life as a road trip and you're going to be kind of spending on more touristy type things and spending more on gas, you can see what that's like. Or if you're trying to do more of a stationary type of van life where you're working a regular job and not really traveling that far. But without further ado, let's jump into it. So the first category we want to start with is sort of our annual expenses. Things that we pay for not really on a monthly basis, but a year to year or 6 month basis. And that is our registration renewal for the vehicle, our car insurance, National Parks Pass. We get one every year, pretty much no questions asked. Our virtual mailbox, which is how we sort of receive mail on the road. It gives us a permanent address that we can use for stuff, and they will scan things or send packages to us. And Surfshark, which is the VPN that we use to sort of protect ourselves because we're using all kinds of public Wi-Fi and things. So the total for all of those things together is $1,718. So divided out for 12 months is about $143 a month. So that is pretty steady. Those numbers don't really change very much.
All right, so the next category is basically our monthly bills, which covers our cell phone bill, health insurance, student loans, and Spotify and Hulu. So the grand total of our monthly bills are $464.
Okay, so that covers most of our costs that don't really change that much. And then obviously the big thing that is sort of the most interesting category is the variable costs, which we do experience a wide range of changes in how much we're spending on the road. Especially if we're traveling in California where gas is triple the price as Texas. Yeah, and when gas is one of our primary expenses, we definitely feel that in our wallets. So this first month that we're going to talk about is sort of one of the first months that we were traveling full time in the van. So we were just letting loose, kind of in the honeymoon phase, if you will. And then that was sort of traveling through Utah, Nevada, and a lot of California. So the gas prices were pretty expensive. So the variable things that we break it down into are laundry, showers, gas, campsites, groceries, eating out and going to restaurants and breweries. Miscellaneous is park fees, just souvenirs, etc. And then van maintenance, if anything needs to be done on the van, and that does pop up from time to time. So the total for all of those things for that month in October 2019, so this is pre-COVID times when you could still go out places, was $1,669. That's one of our more expensive months that we've ever had. And here's the breakdown of the numbers for each of those categories. And you'll see that gas was $533. That's one of the biggest gas expense months we've ever had. We try to take things relatively slow so that we don't have a $1,000 gas bill. Yeah. And we want to take time to enjoy the areas that we travel. Yeah. So when we travel, we're mostly trying to ideally not have any drive longer than 3.5 hours. Usually we do a pretty good job of just finding cool stuff along the way and breaking it up, so we're not just driving 10 hours over here and then 10 hours over that way, because that's just a very inefficient way to spend your gas money, basically. And then, yeah, like I said, pre-COVID, we don't go out to eat like all the time in like normal life. We probably would eat out like once a week on average when we're like full-time traveling.
Especially when the NFL is going on. We'd
yeah.
always go out like every Sunday to watch the games, and we have 2 different teams that we're fans of, so we'd have to go to like 2 different like sessions of eating out.
Yeah, sometimes we'll be at like a restaurant and the server is like, well, my shift is ending because you guys have been here for like 7 hours, so do you mind if I close your check? We're like, it's fine, we're sorry.
Don't worry, we leave a nice tip.
Yeah. So that kind of gives you an idea of like what a more expensive month for us is like. You know, like being thrifty and a little bit frugal, but also not afraid to like go out if we find a cool brewery we like or something like that.
Yeah.
And another factor is that we pretty much try not to pay for camping ever, which we love about the Western US because you can actually do that because there's so much public land available. So like for that month, that one of our most expensive months, we still paid $0 for any campsites whatsoever. So depending on how you travel, if you're someone who likes to go to campgrounds or like RV parks or something like that, those can really start to add up and can easily like get into hundreds of dollars. But like I said, we keep that to straight up zero, which is part of what helps us live this lifestyle and like, you know, make us stretch our money farther and farther.
As we mentioned earlier, we have 2 different types of travel, and so now I'm going to cover what expenses we have when we're working seasonal jobs and pretty much laying low for the most part. Basically the annual fees and the monthly bills will be exactly the same because those are pretty stationary. So when it comes to like our variable expenses, we'll leave the numbers right over there. But we basically had showers to use at the place we were staying. We also were able to stay for free. We did really like minimal travel. We'd like go on like little hikes here and there that were around like the place. But
the longest weekend trip we took was like 5 hours away to Glacier National Park. But other than that, everything was like pretty local. And
one of the best parts about seasonal jobs is usually you have like friends to hang out with. So
yeah.
We weren't traveling nearly as much.
It was on a lake in northern Idaho, so it was pretty beautiful. Like even if you didn't like travel anywhere, like we still had like good hikes around. And also, since it's a restaurant job, we got lots of free meals, so that cut down our groceries by a significant amount too.
So the grand total for our variables is $828. So basically like cut in half compared to like when we're like full-time traveling.
Yeah, so we just wanted to point that out, especially because obviously makes a big difference if you're trying to gauge like how much van life costs. You really have to say like, well, what kind of life are we talking about? Like, are you just on a road trip where you're sort of letting loose and spending on more touristy things, or are you like being a little more frugal, living sort of more like a stationary life?
So we basically just wanted to go over our monthly expenses to give people a rough idea of what van life might cost for them. We basically really like to cook our own meals. We try to eat pretty well, so we'll always stock up on like fresh veggies, fresh fruits, and make every single meal in the van if possible.
Yeah, but we're like pretty thrifty and not like buying like expensive meats and stuff. So
I think you could really cut down like even that cost, and like if you really don't like to go out to breweries or restaurants, then that really eliminates a lot of the cost.
Yeah, and like, you know, we're not eating like ramen soup like 7 times a week, but if you wanted to do that, you could cut your grocery bill into a fraction. The other thing we spend a lot of money on, which we include in our grocery bill, is just beer in general. We just drink a lot of beer, you know, responsibly, but
I'm from Wisconsin, so, and we eat a lot of cheese.
Yeah.
We like to spend extra on some good cheese occasionally.
Yeah. So that's like one thing that starts to add up, all those like craft beers that we're buying all the time. And when you're living van life, sometimes it's hard to like have a structure to your life. So the difference between drinking on a Monday or drinking on a Friday night makes no difference. So it makes it hard to not just like have a beer every single day. So that's why our beer expenses kind of get jacked up pretty high. But you know, it's part of living a good life, so we're into it.
Yeah.
Another thing, in case you're curious, our camper van gets like 14.5 miles to the gallon. So if you're trying to compare like what our gas prices might be to some other vehicle, we find it's pretty good for a camper van that weighs as much as ours does.
And last thing I will say is like, you should always have like a safety net for anything that might go wrong. Luckily, we've just had like little things here and there. So it was like, you know, $300, $400 to like fix, but you never know, like something might happen when you're, I don't know, traveling and you need to have $4,000. So
Yeah.
have like a pretty good safety net so the van maintenance can, you know, hopefully not be astronomical.
Yeah. So, and there's like things like that you pretty much know, like we basically have to replace our air filter like once or twice a year because we're on dusty roads all the time. And then like wiper blades, oil changes, things like that, you shouldn't like view them as unexpected. Like they should just go into like what you're planning on spending every year on your van at least. And then our van's getting like kind of older, so we know that the engine is solid hopefully and like is gonna go for a while, but we're getting around that point where the transmission might need to be repaired, and that's like a multi-$1,000 repair. So like, you know, that's on the horizon for us, and we have that sort of, we're, you know,
It's in the back of our mind.
Yeah.
It might be due.
So trying to like plan for stuff like that, know the vehicle that you have, know how to sort of like do research on, you know, when people are like experiencing transmission failure or engine failure, stuff like that. Everything else, you might have some random ones, but those tend to be like the most expensive things.
But you also might be able to cut down the cost if you know how to work on your vehicle.
Yeah.
So that's one tip to keep the cost down.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think we're rambling a lot. So
Yeah.
thanks for coming along on this monthly expense report of our van life expenses.
Exactly.
Be sure to like the video if you like our content, subscribe to our channel.
And after this, we're hitting you guys with a Hawaii adventure video.
Stay tuned for tons of adventure content.
From the Two Roaming Souls, we'll see you next time. We're the Two Roaming Souls, and we're happy that you're here.
Really? Monthly expenses will leave.
Shh. We got the numbers right here. Check them out.